it will make a difference in analysis. It has to be brought down to the same scale. You will have to use some kind of kappa coefficients to convert a semantic to a Likert. That has to be done. Otherwise, the results are not valid. No. So when you do your content analysis, it can be an even scale. But when you administer a questionnaire, neutrality also is an input. So when you use that for, let's say, further analysis of regression or path analysis, structural equation analysis, 0 also counts there. So in your content analysis, it can be an even scale. In fact, it is more desirable for it to be an even scale. But when it comes to structural equation modeling or the other analysis part, it has to be a odd numbered scale. Somebody else was saying something. It has significance. It has significance because the interval data is nothing but it's defined by that 0 has significance. There is no true 0. Okay? Because let's say when you adopt a qualitative approach in which you are administering certain preferences, indifference is also a bias. There are different sampling, non-sampling biases. Indifference also is a bias. Indifference bias it's called. So that will have to be factored. Right? Coming back to our slide, we talked about qualitative, quantitative having numerical and non-numerical data. Going further, qualitative is an open format, as in it has open-ended questions. In our example, we started off like that. Because it was qualitative in nature, we asked an open-ended question, right? That is in terms of how does Hyderabad deal with inflation? Yeah. So the data is in form of text, images, videos. This is again transcribed, okay, for further analysis. Whereas you come to quantitative data, it is more structured. You have closed-ended questions that are asked, like your Likert scale, all this questionnaire that we talked about, that's a closed-ended, right? So here, in qualitative, you have a higher risk of subjective bias, okay? Because it's in its nature itself. The respondents, their beliefs or their attitudes or behaviors, that is subjective, right? So that's why it has a high risk of subjective bias. That is Hawthorne effect, observer bias, recall bias, social. These are only few of the examples. There are a lot more biases apart from that also. There's attribution bias, Pygmalion effort, so many other. I think observer bias, you all must be knowing it. That is your own value system, not bringing it. If you bring your value system into your research, ethical neutrality, if you deviate from that, that is called a observer bias. Social desirability. If you ask certain respondents some politically controversial questions, they might go with what is most socially desirable answer, whether they believe it or not. Okay. That is the Hawthorne effect. That is public administration, Elton Mayo's experiments. Yeah. That is when somebody is looking at you, you behave differently. Yeah, that is the Hawthorne effect. Or it's called something else also. The Great Illumination. Yeah. All right. So these are some of the biases that creep into qualitative research. Does that mean that in quantitative research there are no biases? So these are non-sampling errors. Those are sampling errors. Yeah. All right. However, these are more objective, allows for large sample sizes and random sampling techniques. Why large sampling sizes? No, sir. My question is, why am I allowed large sample sizes in quantitative as against small sample sizes in qualitative? Absolutely. So that's why your sampling techniques become purposive sampling techniques, right? You can't have a pure random sampling. Small sizes, non-random sampling. So far clear? Can I move ahead? Yeah. So in terms of methods, right? In terms of methods that I employ for a qualitative research, I'll be employing in-depth interviews, focus group, ethnography, case studies. These are kind of methods, right? The same methods when it comes to quantitative, survey questionnaires, experiments, systematic observation, polls. Yeah, these are difference in methods that are used for each of these approaches. Is there anything that you want me to talk about in these? I won't talk about each one of them. Straightforward, right? We all know focus group. Yeah. Ethnography, no, it has nothing to do with geography, no. Ethnic groups from a standpoint of culture. It can be longitudinal, it can be cross-sectional, both. No, research itself can't be done overnight, sir. So, but it can be done longitudinally and cross-sectionally. Like say, I go and write an ethnography of the Chenchus of Telangana, all right? And I conduct my study in the month of December. And based on that findings, I write my ethnography. This is a cross-sectional research. Again, if I come next year in December, longitudinal research. So it can be cross-sectional, longitudinal, both. Okay. Have we heard of participant observation? What is participant observation? See, I've written there systematic observation. Participant observation. Yes. So I said that would be done from a cultural perspective. So he has to immerse himself in that culture. That is a participant observation. Non-participant, when you stand outside the culture. When you are behaving as a researcher. Right? The type of analysis for qualitative, content analysis, thematic analysis, textual, discourse analysis. Discourse analysis, I think somebody talked about it initially. Dialogue and, no, discourse and discussion. I think that's what somebody said. Okay. Literature students, they would be knowing this much more. English literature, somebody said English literature. But have you heard, sir, ma'am, English literature? Have you heard this? Okay, can you tell me what discourse analysis? Anything, it's okay. Come on. Discussion? Discussion and debates. It's not part of this slide. Discourse analysis. See, discussion and debates is totally separate. Okay, discourse analysis has to do with, the kind of communication that is present in mainstream media. Let's say if I want to do a research in how speeches of politicians affect trust amongst their voters. Okay, so then I will do a discourse analysis. That is, I will study the speeches and try to understand. That's an element of it. It could be mesmerizing, it could be charismatic, it could be, yeah, those are all different features of the speech itself. But of conducting that research, that is a discourse analysis. Okay. Content analysis has to do with the words that you use. Yeah, the actual words that you use, that is content analysis. Right? Thematic analysis, we're trying to understand the theme. the central theme. Like say, if I'm trying to take a research in terms of tourism sites, how much are they aligned to the self-identity of tourists? The popularity of a tourism site, how aligned is it to the self-identity of the tourists? So I'm trying to understand the theme there. The theme being the self-identity. Okay, clear? Textual analysis is something like a literature survey. I take all the literature that is available on that particular news reports, magazine reports, whatever literature that is research papers I take, and that is a textual analysis. Textbooks that are there. Content has to do with the content has to do with the actual words that you use, the grammar that is used. So that is done when you want to do a PhD, let's say, in the works of Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy is an author. All right. So if you want to understand his style, you will do a content analysis. Yeah. What are the words that he uses? In which situations does he use these words to describe this particular emotion? No, that's an algorithm of a lot of approaches, man. It has to do with a lot of approaches. And that algorithm, you can choose the approach there. It's not a fixed kind of it's a very fluid algorithm that you can write. I can search based on words. I can search based on your previous searches also and the word. I can then connect to your Facebook and see what is your background. The algorithm is limitless. So I would not bring that here. Ma'am, clear? Yeah. Analysis when it comes to quantitative approaches, regression analysis, factor analysis, path analysis, time series analysis. See, you need to basically know what this is. You don't need to know what exactly how this analysis is done. Okay. So regression, do we know regression? Correlation regression. Yeah, correlation has to do with. Sir? Okay, fine. All right. So I'll leave that to sir then. Thank you, sir. Because I've already short my time. See, basically here you're trying to understand different influences of different factors. You talked about dependent and independent variables, right? What are my dependent, what are my independent, what are my latent variables, what are my exogenous variables, endogenous variables. They deal with all these kind of stuff, okay? And the analysis that you can use on all of that are those, all right? I won't go into all of that. You can just note it down. Probably if you can read up a little on that. Okay, qualitative approach used mostly humanities, social sciences like anthropology, sociology, education, history. Whereas the other approach is used in natural sciences, biology, chemistry, psychology, economics, marketing. See here, if you actually see, there's an overlapping discipline here called humanities. Oh, sorry, social science. It's overlapping. It's both here and there. The reason being, it's part of a spectrum. They're not watertight compartments. It's part of a spectrum. This is just a summary of what we already discussed so far. All of this is, we already spoke about all of this in terms of objective, reasoning, inductive, deductive, open-ended questions, closed-ended questions. If you actually see, there is a logical progression in all of this. Since it deals in feelings and attitudes and opinions, that's why it is an exploratory research, right? And you don't have an hypothesis, and you adopt an inductive methodology. For this, you employ open-ended questions, and that's why the data that you get is mostly non-numerical, right? Which is subjective. Because of that, it is a small sample. You can't go for large samples here, and the type of sampling is purposive sampling. Yeah, it's the same logic which applies even there. And if, as we have initially discussed, qualitative is used to collect experience, and that is to test experience. Yeah. Let's take a few examples of mixed models. Like I said, by and large, mostly you will employ a mixed model approach. Okay. I've taken an example here. To what extent does the frequency of traffic accidents reflect cyclists' perceptions of road safety? Okay. Right. That is my problem statement. If you actually see there is qualitative and quantitative. I marked it there. Okay. Are we clear in that? Any doubts? Yeah. Another example. How do student perceptions of their school environment relate to differences in test scores? There's a qualitative aspect, there's a quantitative aspect. You have to do both. How can voter and non-voter beliefs about democracy help explain election turnout patterns? Their belief in democracy, which is a qualitative. Voter turnout, quantitative. Yeah. All right. We've heard the whole lecture. We've almost come to the end. We've understood basic differences between both approaches. We also understood how both of them are part of the same spectrum, right? We've got a little bit of conceptual clarity. Yes, I presume. Yes. Can you answer me that question then? Does free text in surveys constitute a qualitative study? Yes, no. If yes, why? If no, why? Free text in the sense I have a questionnaire. At the end, I say suggestions or describe this particular situation. I basically have a survey, but I'm asking you subjective. That is free text. Yes. Yes. No. No. It's not. This is not a trick question. No. Circumstances are same for both. We are not changing context. Then we are not doing research only in that. Then we are not going to do research in that. Does free text in surveys constitute qualitative study? Come again, ma'am. Sorry, I didn't. Yes. Okay. Is anybody there who has an opinion of no? Anybody with the opinion of no? Okay. 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 So here, one small clarification, sir. Here I'm not bothered about the data that I'm getting from the respondents. I'm at the questionnaire stage only. I'm at the questionnaire stage. I've made the questionnaire. It has a free text of suggestions or what do you think should be better? Something like that. Okay. I've still not been studied. Does my study constitute a qualitative study or quantitative study? Quantitative. How, ma'am? No, it's okay. You can. In fact, you're right. Everybody else is not right. I won't say wrong. It's because free text is qualitative data. It's not an approach. It's not a type of study. Okay. We have defined quantitative, one of the methods of in quantitative study as a questionnaire, survey questionnaire. Right? So that comes under a quantitative study itself. In that, I have one particular question which has a bit of text. So it is only qualitative data that I'm getting, not qualitative study. Clear? So that is the overlap. You see the overlap between qualitative and quantitative now? They're not watertight compartments. Okay? That's it from my side. Thank you.
So, and so far you might have seen all in the different directions. The SAR direction is the purely on the science background. Maybe you can measure almost few of them are from the science background. Maybe you can see the SAR orientation, and SAR has so many projects and so many things he has. Yeah? uh, uh, yes, yes. No, no, just orientation will be the different. I am not saying that for everybody's is the research, but maybe SAR orientation, it may be more towards the science. That's it. Thank you.